NBC's Vaughn Hilliard is joining us here in the studio to discuss this. Also with us, Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst Rick Tyler. He's a former communications director for Ted Cruz. So, Vaughn, start us off here. What can we expect from this rally tonight? Is a VP announcement to come?
Our colleague John Allen says that Marco Rubio, the Florida senator, will be joining him at that rally tonight. Of course, he could very well be one of those VP finalists. We're still looking at North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, potentially J.D. Vance. There is a second rally that is planned for outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, this upcoming Saturday. Of course, that is right before the Milwaukee convention starts on Monday. I want to let you listen, though, to Donald Trump in a taped conversation with Sean Hannity last night about the state of his decision-making process. Take a listen.
I haven't made final decision, but I have some ideas as to where we're going. And a little bit, we wanted to see what they're doing, to be honest, because, it might make a difference. I don't know. I'd love to do it during the convention. I think it would be a very interesting build-up and important for the convention. It would make it even more exciting.
That is a shift because it was only just a few days ago that he was suggesting publicly that he had already made the decision in his mind, but now seeming to leave open the door to wait to see what the state of Biden's candidacy looks like.
And fill us in on these changes to the RNC platform as we head into the convention next week.
Right. The last time the Republican Party adopted a platform was in 2016 before their convention in Cleveland. And just yesterday, it was a proposed platform that was passed by the platform committee that will be voted on by the full RNC delegation in Milwaukee next week. But this platform, the proposed platform, received the backing of Donald Trump just yesterday. And there was two notable parts of this. Number one, there was a call for the largest deportation program in American history. There was also the call to have individuals who brought prosecutions against perceived political enemies to go and be targeted and investigated themselves. Of course, then, though, there was notably on abortion, there was I guess you could say, a little bit watered down policy platform as opposed to 2016, when in the GOP's platform, they called for what they refer to as a human life amendment to be added to the U.S. Constitution, essentially a federal abortion ban. This platform, this proposed platform, though, yesterday said that this should be a decision left to the states. And on same-sex marriage in 2016, that platform from the GOP, there was a reference to being a marriage between being one man and one woman. This go around, it is only a reference to the sanctity of marriage. So a little bit watered down version of same-sex marriage reference to.
Vaughn, thank you very much for that reporting. Rick, this new platform kind of steering the party away from traditional GOP issues that may not play well with more middle-of-the-road voters, right, on abortion, on same-sex marriage. But can voters trust that what is in this platform will be binding? Will Republicans stick to it?
Well, look, it remains to be seen. There wasn't a platform in 2020 significantly, and there was in 2016. But without a pro-life and a pro-marriage platform in the Republican Party, I don't see where the party survives. It is going to split. There is just too many pro-life Republicans. I would find it very hard to believe that they would adopt the Republican Party, which tells you this is not the Republican Party anymore, would adopt a platform that is not firmly in the pro-life camp and acknowledges marriage between one man and one woman, which is what the 2016 platform said, and this platform would not have that. And remember, evangelicals all over the country, they have, their churches have election day sermons, particularly the largest ones, the Calvary Chapel churches, and those pastors will get up there, and what are they going to explain? That you're going to vote for Donald Trump, who represents the party that is no longer pro-life. I find that really, really hard to believe that people would do that. And any leader in the pro-life movement, clearly it pays more to be pro-Trump than pro-life, is going to go out there and advocate for a president who's not going to wholeheartedly back a platform that is pro-life and pro-marriage. I find that really extraordinary. And it represents a huge weakness in the party. People keep talking about, Joe Biden resigning, which I think he should, but I also think Donald Trump should resign because he's a convicted felon. We shouldn't have. It'd be great if we just had both of them resign. We could just start this mess all over again.
Trump was actually on Fox last night and was asked about President Biden's insistence that he's going to stay in the race. Here's how Trump sees it.
It looks to me like he may very well stay in. He's got an ego and he doesn't want to quit. He doesn't want to do that. It just looks to me like that's what he wants. Nobody wants to give that up that way. he's going to feel badly about himself for a long time. It's hard to give it up that way.
Rick, your reaction to these comments from Trump on Biden's ego?
Well, look, Biden has been in office since he's been 29 years old. He's now 81. The problem is that cognitive decline, if that's indeed what it is, I do not know, does not get better with time. He's going to be 81. And the way the campaign in the White House is treating him is really, to me, it's just despicable. You know, let's have him do a press conference, let's have him do a live interview, let's have him do this and that. He's not going to get younger. He's not going to be 78 at the end of all this. He's still going to be 81. And people are not electing people for Joe Biden to get through the next press conference. They're electing him to be president for 4 more years. And that is the issue. And I think Democrats, although some of them are saying it, do realize that they're electing someone for 4 more years, not just to get through the next press conference. And so they have really got to handle this. And I just think it's not been handled very well at all. And there's a lot of questions still to be answered. I don't know the answers, but there's a lot of questions.
Well, we keep asking the questions. Rick Tyler, thank you.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.